So in here, what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and grabbing a brass brush and my map gas torch so I can heat up the Damascus to transfer some brass to what I'm doing, this little magnet piece that I've been working on. Trying to be careful this whole time not to overheat it and make sure that it's not the torch discoloring the steel and that it is the brass coming off of the brush and turning and leaving a brass residue on the steel. Little bit of a time consuming process. Okay, so I've got a little bit of brass transferred on here. I've covered the whole thing. To my surprise, I get this nice little reveal of the pattern behind it that the sanding didn't reveal. Back to touch it up a little bit here. Kind of add just a little bit more, trying to be sure that that brass stays in the lettering when I go to dip it in the ferric acid later to etch it. Trying to build a nice contrast is the idea. Okay, so now what I'm doing is, because the brass is filled the stamps completely that are on the surface, now what I'm doing is I'm sanding the surface with a flat block to make sure the sandpaper doesn't go down into the stamps and sand the brass out of them, sanding only the surface, leaving just the brass and the stamps. And I'm going to take this right now from 400 grit up to next to 600 grit, then an 800 grit, and so on until I get to about 3000 by hand. Now periodically you'll see me lean over and kind of clear off the sanding residue from the stamps. This is to ensure that I'm not sanding down into the stamps. From 600, next up is 800. So it's just to kind of make sure that as I go, I'm not sanding down into the stamps and removing the brass that I am ultimately trying to keep. I know it seems really fast here in the time lapse, but the overall process of sanding this took me a solid couple hours. Now, if any of you have been kind of clever while watching this, you'll notice that there is an ingot sitting on the clamp next to me there, the vise next to me. Well, that is actually the mosaic Damascus piece that this piece I'm working on is cut from. The rest of the ingot is actually over on the anvil currently. So here we're at about a 1500 grit sandpaper, and much of this just kind of feels a lot like wiping some paper across steel. The grit is very fine. We've moved up here to I think 2000, and these are going to move faster and faster. The finer the grit sandpaper that you have, the quicker it wears out. Rough sandpaper does definitely last longer. All right, now we're going to check out. So now that pattern reveal is gone after the sanding. The brass is no longer there to highlight it. Now we're going to drill a little spot here in the back for our magnet. Try to be careful not to sink too deep, because as you can see, the piece isn't very thick. But neither is the magnet. I just need a spot, enough of an area for the magnet to kind of seat and to put some adhesive behind it, so that if you want to move the magnet, the actual neodymium magnet in the back doesn't pull away from the piece. We're taking off the tape that I used to protect the real shiny surface while drilling. Ta-da! No damage to our nice pretty surface. Our back has the hole drilled in it, and our letters are still brass. Now I have to make a little jig for dropping something so small into ferric acid. I'm not about to put my hands in there. So I struggle with some baling wire, use the horn of the anvil to hold the roll, so I can kind of disperse it like paper towels. Take and wrap it around one side and make a loop around the body. Then we'll take and bend it down and underneath it to create a basket. Then we'll draw out enough to where we can drop it kind of low in the acid and cut her free and make a hook on the end. Whoop. Hook. There we go. Now we'll see what ferric acid does to brass. We'll see how well it keeps. Here's where I noticed it. Damn, the lettering. All that work, ate away by acid. Well, let's rinse it. Let's check it. Yep, brass got 8. Well, it still looks real nice.
Looks like we lost our brass in the etch. It's kind of unfortunate, but
yeah, we're taking,
still a process I'm trying to figure out. And there we have our fifth element themed little magnet. Try number 1.